DreAllDay.com. Tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves all of us to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one package, one framework. We have codified our entire system, this whole process from top to bottom. We created a university, wrote a book on the subject, and you're listening to the daily masterclass that we give you every single day. You understand when I say every day? It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to handle your mistakes. Now, while ideally we would never make mistakes and we would all be perfect, we know that human beings are imperfect creatures. We are going to make mistakes. Maybe we make mistakes of mental errors, and even though most of the time we want to avoid the mental errors, because I've already told you that mental errors are unacceptable. We talked about that in episode number 689, how to eliminate mental errors forever. I told you about bad mental errors that good people make in episode number 441, and also episode number 54, we talked about that, and also episode 993, why mental errors are unacceptable, but they still happen from time to time. Sometimes you make mechanical errors, meaning we just make physical errors, things that we just come up short on, and things that we're doing. Sometimes we just don't have the right type of information and we mess up. But how do we handle these mistakes? How can we handle when we realize that a mistake has been made? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to do extra or pay extra in some way, shape, or form, in form of your time, money, attention, energy, or focus to undo something that should never have happened in the first place? You ever had to pay some money to fix a problem that should not have happened, or give some time to undo something that you shouldn't have did when you first did it? Me too. Time lost in, for example, any of you ever gotten into a bad relationship, that time that you used up, you can't get that time back. You chose the wrong mate. You chose the wrong business partner, and that time is gone. And hopefully you got a story from it. Hopefully you got a lesson from it. You don't repeat that mistake. But that time is the payment that you had to make for making that bad decision again. Maybe you just didn't know what you didn't know at the time, but a mistake is still a mistake. Whether you knew it was a mistake or you didn't, it's still a mistake. That doesn't erase the fact that that time has been lost. Those 2 years or that 6 months is gone, whether you knew about it or you didn't. Any of you ever spent money to have to undo an ill-advised purchase? For example, I remember I bought a used car years ago. I bought this used car from this used car shop, and they seemed legitimate enough. And the car was fine. I mean, the car worked for, how long did I have that car? I had that car for a few years, maybe 3-4 years. This used car that I bought from this place. And I remember because I didn't really have any credit at the time. I had no credit score whatsoever. I had never really had credit cards. I didn't even know what my credit score was. So the payment for that car was like $500 a month. Now, I have no frame of reference as to how much a car payment is supposed to be. So I'm paying $500 a month for this car, and I paid that car off in about 2 years, paid the whole thing off. There was a balloon payment of how much was that? It was maybe $1,500, $900, something like that. Paid that off, paid off the car, made every single payment, never missed a payment, was never late on the payment, was never short on the payment. And then after making all those payments, it was only years later that I realized that buying a car from that place did not raise my credit score, not one bit. It didn't even report. The car place did not report their sales to credit bureaus. So even though I was making all those payments and on time and everything, it didn't raise my credit score at all. So then when I went to a bona fide car dealership to get a car, and they were checking my credit score was like trash because I'd never had any credit. And I was like, hey, I just got the car that I pulled up in, it was still that used car. I'm told them, look, the car I pulled up in, I made every single payment on that car. I never missed a payment. I was always on time for whatever number of payments straight, 24, 36, whatever, straight payments. And they said, well, the place you bought it from doesn't report the credit bureau, so that didn't actually help your credit at all. So I just didn't have the information that I didn't have. So even though I didn't lose anything, it's not like the car place robbed me. I mean, the car did actually work, and the price was the price. I agreed to pay that price. Now, who knows if I got a good price or not, but I agreed to pay it. So nobody was done wrong. But the thing is, all that time, I thought I was helping my credit score, but it didn't help my credit score at all. So I spent all that money and didn't even get one of the outcomes that I was hoping to get in that purchase. All those payments did nothing to build my credit score. So I did all that extra work for a choice that did absolutely nothing for me. So any of you ever had to do in your life some extra work to pay for a poor choice that you made? For example, when you're in school, maybe you get caught doing something you're not supposed to do. So you got to do detention. When I was in middle school, I remember I got detention because there was a fair at the school and me and my friend cut class to spend more time at the fair, and then we got caught, and then we couldn't play intramural basketball the next week, and then we got detention and we had to stay after school and all this other stuff. We had to pay with our time because nothing else they could really do to us. So we had to pay with our time to undo that mistake. It wasn't really a mistake. We wanted to spend time at the fair. It's just the fact that we got caught was a mistake. But the whole point is, as we get into the points I want to give you here today, is we're talking about how to handle your mistakes in life, because we're all going to make them again, whether we are completely aware that we're doing something that we shouldn't do, and it's not a mistake if we don't get caught. But if we end up getting caught at it, then it becomes a mistake. How are we going to handle these? Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is how to handle your mistakes. At the very moment that you realize that you have made a mistake. Now, when you realize you made a mistake and you don't want to make that mistake. Now, again, if you're doing something that you know you're not supposed to do, but you're doing it and you want to do it though, you're not supposed to do it, but you want to do it because it will benefit you as long as you don't get caught, as long as you don't get trouble at it, then that's not what I'm referring to here. I'm talking about the kind of mistake that when you realize, okay, this is not what I want to be doing and it's not going to get me the outcome I want. When you realize that, stop. At the moment that you realize you're dating a person who is going to be some trouble in the long run, stop. At the moment you realize, okay, paying this car payment every month for the next 2 years, $500 a month, and always being on time is not going to help my credit score one iota. I can get a okay used car from a lot of places, because that's what I had, was an okay used car. I can get that from a lot of different places. Why am I getting it here? Let me go get it from somewhere where I'm actually going to help my credit score by making these payments on time. Stop. When you realize that you are in a hole, don't keep digging in the hole. All right. The first step in getting out of a hole is to stop digging. Do not compound the mistake by going deeper and trying to, thinking that if you just double down on whatever you're doing, that's going to make the situation better. Don't do that. Realizing that you've messed up, put a stop to the bleeding. All right. Don't do anything that's going to cause you to bleed more and compound the situation. Many people don't take this step. Now, while this seems like a very simple step, many people don't take it. And maybe you at times have realized that you're making a mistake. Maybe unconsciously you realized you had made a mistake and you kept doing the thing that you were doing before anyway, because it's uncomfortable to deal with that mistake. It'll be uncomfortable to say, oh, you know what? I shouldn't be in this relationship. Let me dump this girl, or let me break it off with this guy, because this is really not going to go the way that I want it to go, because it's uncomfortable for you. There's a female friend of mine I was just talking to this week from when I'm recording this, and she was talking about, I hadn't talked to her in a while. She was like, yo, how are things going with you during COVID and all this stuff? And she was like, yeah, I just been in the house and just hanging out and not really doing anything, not really dealing with anyone. And she was saying, well, no. And I was like, damn, I said to her, like, damn, it's pretty isolating. You haven't been around people at all this time? She was like, no, not really. And then she added in, she said, well, I was with this guy, and me and him, I would spend time at his house like all the time. So me and him were hanging out all the time. So we kept each other company. So it wasn't really that bad. And I noted, as I was talking to her, I said, well, you're mentioning him in the past tense. So what happened to this guy? And she said, yeah, I broke it off with that guy. And I said, oh, okay, well, congratulations. I mean, obviously you wanted to do it. It wasn't forced upon you. And then I went further. I asked her, well, why'd you break it off with him? What was wrong with this guy? I didn't know who the guy was. I never met the guy. I never heard of him. I was just talking to her for the first time since before she even got with the guy. So she had got with him and broke off with him the whole time. I hadn't spoken to her at all. And she said, well, I realized that he was not the guy or a guy that I wanted to be with long term. So I broke it off with him. And I could tell by the way she was saying it and the look on her face when she said it, that there was a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of emotion attached to the fact that she was thinking about what she did in breaking it off with that guy. And I said, well, I asked her, I was kind of being kind of sarcastic. I was trying to inject a little bit of levity into the conversation. I said, well, did you make him cry? And I was expecting her to kind of laugh it off and say, no, we just broke it off. But then she said, well, it was a very emotional breakup. So again, I don't know the guy, but she goes on to say, yeah, it was a very emotional breakup. And, he was very upset, but, it was the better thing to do. And then she went on to say the same thing I'm saying to you now, that once she realized that this was not a guy she wanted to be with long term, she knew it was the best strategy to break off that situation right then before it got any further. She did not allow herself to get deeper into that hole. She realized that she was in a hole that she didn't want to be in. So her first point, and this is what I'm telling you now, is to stop digging when you notice that you're in a hole. But many people don't do what this woman was explaining to me because it is so uncomfortable just to stop digging. But it becomes more and more and more uncomfortable the further you dig. So really, you just have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Now remember, we're talking about making a mistake. Once you realize that you're in a place that you don't want to be in, I get it that it's kind of fucked up to have to announce to whoever you're dealing with that you're in a place that you don't want to be. But it will be more fucked up if you get deeper into that place that you don't want to be, and then you got to deal with it 5 years later, 10 years later. Maybe you live your whole life unhappy or in an unideal situation because you didn't deal with it when the problem was small, before the monster got big. So she did deal with it, and she did the adult thing, the wise thing, the work on your game thing, the disciplined thing, the confident and mental tough thing, which is to break off the situation at that point before it gets bigger, and it will only get worse from that point moving forward. So know that you messed up, put a stop to the bleeding. Many people don't do this because it's uncomfortable, especially if you had to deal with other people in doing it. It's possibly embarrassing if there are other people that may have opinions or have something negative to say about it. It may be very inconvenient to deal with whoever you had to deal with and letting them know that you're done with this situation or that you got to get out this hole that you're digging in. Maybe inconvenient for you, more inconvenient for you to actually notice the situation and do something about it today than it would be to just let it sit and fester by law of inertia, because it's easier to allow a situation to just get worse and do nothing and take no initiative than it is to address the situation as it is in the moment and have to deal with the discomfort of, again, whatever human being you may have to engage with and letting them know that, hey, this situation that we're in right now is a wrap, it's over. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to handle your mistakes. Number 2 is get clear on why this is or was a mistake. Why exactly is this the wrong place? Why exactly is this a hole that you're digging yourself into right now? Because maybe it's possible that maybe you're not really in a hole. Maybe you haven't made a mistake, and right now you're just in an emotional space. Maybe you're not in your most resourceful state right now. So you're looking at this situation and saying, man, it's over. This shouldn't be working. Let me get out of this situation, just because you're just not happy with it right now today. This could be, for example, if you're an athlete playing on a sports team and you're not getting any playing time and another game just went by and you didn't get in the game at all and the team lost and the coach didn't even acknowledge you, and you're like, man, it must be a mistake me even being on this team. Or maybe it's a mistake me even playing this sport, period. Maybe I should just completely give up. I hear from athletes who are in this state all the time, not a very resourceful state. Now, is it because they need to quit the sport because they have no talent and no game and they shouldn't be playing at all? Maybe. Or is it because they're just in a non-resourceful state because they're not getting the results that they want? Their expectations are not matching their reality. Therefore, they're in an emotional state, feeling sorry for themselves and feeling upset and angry about the current situation. And they are allowing that to take them further. They're dragging that thing further and saying, well, maybe I just should give up completely because I don't want to deal with the uncomfortable mental space and the uncomfortable emotions that come with realizing that this thing is not working the way that I want it to work. Which one is it? Because those are two completely different things. When I was a sophomore in college and I wasn't getting the kind of playing time that I expected to get on a team that I had been recruited to come play for, there were many times that I was really upset just with the whole basketball situation. I was upset with the coach. I started not liking my teammates. I didn't really feel like being at practice. I didn't really feel like hanging out off the court with anybody because I wasn't proud of what I was doing on the court. And the very reason I was at that school was because of my abilities on the court, but I wasn't even getting to show anything on the court. So I was not in a good emotional state. I was not in a very resourceful space mentally. Now, I never went as far as saying, oh, I'm going to quit basketball or just, fuck this basketball team, fuck this coach, because I didn't have any alternatives anyway. I didn't get to that space, but I can understand why and how many athletes, when I hear from them these days, they do get into this space. I have another female friend that I'll use as an example, different person from a different time. It was actually when I was in college, she had a boyfriend that was like a long distance type of relationship. He wasn't that far away, but he wasn't on the same campus that we were on. And sometimes she would be talking to that boyfriend, and he was like this jealous type of guy, at least from what she would say. This is just her side of it. I don't think I really actually even met the guy, but we had a lot of mutual friends. But she would tell me the stories of what he would say, and she would be on the phone with him all the time. He'd always be calling her all different hours and things like that. And he would always get mad at her. Whenever he got mad at her, he would say, like, it's over. This relationship's over. I'm dumping you. It's over. And then she would have to go and see him wherever he was at and this and that. And it was like this back and forth charade that would happen all the time. She would always tell me this. And this is a microcosm. This is an example of what I'm talking about. Many times when people get into these emotional states, they are not in a very resourceful space. So instead of dealing with the situation and saying, okay, what is the issue right here? And how do we actually resolve the issue in a mature, resourceful type of way? Now, again, we're talking about college kids here, 19, 20-year-old kids. So I understand why that situation was happening the way that it was. I guess she didn't stay with that guy, by the way. But instead of doing it that way in a resourceful space, in a way that we can figure out what is the actual problem here we need to deal with, what many people do is they just go to the most convenient thing that we condition ourselves to learn, which is just emotionally react to a situation and just say, all right, forget it. Well, you know what? I'm not liking what the boss said to me, so I'm just quit the job. I'm not liking that I didn't get in the game, so I'm gonna just quit the team, or I'm gonna quit playing the sport. I don't like something that my significant other said to me, so you know what? I'm gonna just dump them and not be in this relationship anymore. While that might, if you take the time to think about it and really assess it maturely, maybe that is the right course of action, but it is not the thing that you should do just because on a whim you're unhappy with what's going on right now today in this exact moment. That's a very immature, non-resourceful way to deal with things. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, what exactly did I do wrong to be in this situation? What makes it a mistake? Why was being on this team a mistake? Why was getting in a relationship with this guy or this girl a mistake in the big picture? If you can't answer that question, then again, maybe it's just your emotions talking and not your logic talking. Now, when you decide you made a mistake and you need to get out of that hole, you should be thinking about it logically, not emotionally. Because emotions will run wild if you allow them to drive the car. Emotions you use as the gas pedal, they are not the steering wheel. So what exactly did you do wrong to cause the situation? How did things go wrong, and why did things go wrong? You need to ask yourself each of these questions and answer them. If you cannot answer these questions, then I would offer you, if I was coaching you, now I don't think I'm coaching you one-on-one right now, maybe I am, but if I was coaching you one-on-one and you were coming to me with this situation, I would ask you these exact questions. What exactly made this a mistake? How did the mistake happen? Why is this a mistake? And if you cannot give me clear answers to these questions, what I would say to you is, perhaps is your current mental state, your non-resourceful state that is talking to you right now, and not the actual truth of the matter that's talking to you. What did you not see? So to answer these questions, let's say you were in a resourceful state and you could answer these in a way that made it make sense that you do need to get out of a situation. You do need to chalk this up as a mistake and get out of it. Here's a question you need to answer. What did you not see or do earlier that now you're seeing and doing and you're realizing you're in the wrong space? What information did you have access to that you just ignored or for whatever reason didn't pay enough attention to at the time? Here's another one. What could you have done differently given the same information that you had at the time? Not given the new information you have now, because we can't go back and retroactively say, well, now that we got this information, we should have did this different. Well, you didn't know that back then. Given the same information you had back then, what could you have done differently in this situation? When you can answer these questions, these are good ways to deconstruct a mistake that you made, to deconstruct to kind of debrief yourself on whatever you've been through, whether it was a success or a failure. These questions are one place that I saw someone pose some really good questions about this, that after a situation is over, whatever the situation was, successful, failure, neutral, jury is still out, and just asking yourself certain questions so you can assess your decision-making process so you can be better at making decisions in the future, is a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. And this is a really good book. This is another book that when I originally made my top 5 books lists, I made a couple top 5s books lists. I think the top 10, another 10, another 10. I hadn't read this book yet. And another one is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Those are 2 books that would definitely barge their way definitely into my top 15 if I had to do a top 15 all over again. Again, it's called Principles. The author is Ray Dalio, D-A-L-I-O. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to handle your mistakes. Number 3, understand that mistakes ain't free. This is something that I touched on earlier. Even though, let's be very clear here, because this is something that I find a lot of people a lot of times people don't want to own their mistakes because their disclaimer is, well, I just didn't know what I didn't know. I get it. I didn't know that buying this car from this used car place was not going to help raise my credit score. I didn't know that. But that doesn't mean I can go to Equifax or TransUnion or FICO and say, hey, raise my credit score because look at all these payments that I made to this place that y'all don't recognize. It doesn't work like that. They would still say, I'm sorry, sir, your credit score doesn't go up till you do it the way that we do it. So even though I didn't know, I got to pay for that mistake. I mean, it didn't actually cost me anything, but it's the opportunity cost of the fact that I didn't raise my credit score because of a mistake that I made in not having the right information. And that's something that I got to own. I got to eat that. You just got to, sometimes you got to eat a mistake, even though it wasn't your fault that the mistake happened, even though you didn't do technically anything wrong, even though you just didn't have the information. You were ignorant of the situation. My ignorance is what cost me the opportunity cost of not being able to raise my credit score and paying for that cheap ass car. So if you have indeed messed up, know that you'll have to pay some form of restitution to fix things. And that restitution might be the thing that you can't have now because of the mistake that you made. For example, if you get into a relationship with someone who seems perfect at the beginning, but they turn to be an abusive, narcissistic asshole, and you end up in a relationship with them for 2 years, and during that 2 years, you miss out on a person who would have been perfect for you. Now, by the time you get out of that situation with the asshole, you try to go find that person who would have been perfect, they already found somebody else, and they end up married with 3 kids, and you could never get with them, and now you got to live the rest of your life with that regret. It wasn't your fault that the person that you got with was an asshole. You didn't know they were an asshole at the beginning. They didn't seem like to be an asshole when you first got in it. It's not like you ignored the information. They just emerged. The asshole in them emerged over the years. You didn't know until it was time to know. You didn't know until they started showing it. You missed out on your golden opportunity, which was that other person that you now can't be with. That was the opportunity cost. It's not really your fault. You didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but you got to pay for that mistake by knowing that you'll never be able to get with that ideal individual. This is how it works in life, people. When you make a mistake, even if it wasn't your fault, even if you didn't have the information, even if you didn't know what you didn't know, even if you had all the information at the beginning and new information emerged that changed the whole situation on you in the midst of the situation, and it ends up working badly and against you, you got to eat that. You got to pay for that mistake. Is this not necessarily such a great thing? I guess you could say so. Could this kind of be fucked up? Yeah, it can be. We call this life. Mistakes are not free. The restitution that you had to pay for a mistake, time, money, effort, it sucks to have to pay off a mistake, especially when you're not at fault. It's not like you knew you were making a mistake and you did it anyway. You weren't being stupid, it just happened. But what's the alternative to not paying off a mistake? This is the question you got to ask. The alternative to not paying off a mistake is going deeper in the hole with the mistake itself. See, the alternative to me not realizing that buying that used car from that place that was not recognized by the credit bureaus would have been, all right, I paid off that car, let me buy another car from them. All right, that would have been compounding the mistake. Then I would have been stupid. See, at first I was ignorant. I just didn't have the information. See, ignorant is when you just don't know. Stupid is when you know, but you do it anyway. Now, I was ignorant at first, but I wasn't ignorant after I paid it off and I realized the situation. I said, okay, I'd be stupid to buy from them again. So I made a better decision. Now, if you realize somebody's an asshole after 2 years in a relationship, you were ignorant. You didn't know they were an asshole when you first got with them. Now, 2 years later, you realize they're an asshole. If you stay with them, now you're the stupid one because you know better. And there's a difference between the two, a huge difference between the two. So what's the better option? All right, own your ignorance and pay off your ignorance because you just didn't know what you didn't know, or do you want to be stupid and pay a lot more for the fact that you knew better, but you stuck in the situation, but you stayed in the situation by choice? You had to be mentally tough enough, ladies and gentlemen, to cut your losses, even when cutting your losses comes at a cost. Now at least you'll have a clean slate to work with, rather than being stuck in a situation that you know you don't belong in. Recapping today's class, which is how to handle your mistakes. You ever had to do something or pay extra to undo a mistake that shouldn't have happened in the first place? All of us have. But understand that today what we're talking about here today is handling those mistakes and how to handle them in a mature way, first internally and then externally. Number one, at the moment that you realize you made a mistake, stop making that mistake. Do not compound the mistake by digging yourself into a deeper hole. When you realize you're in a relationship you don't want to be in, get out of the relationship. You realize that you are doing something that you shouldn't be doing, stop doing it. Don't keep doing it out of convenience because you are afraid of the inconvenience and the discomfort that comes with ending a situation that you know you do not belong in. It will be worse if you hold on to it. Point number two, get clear on why you made a mistake. Maybe it's not really a mistake and you're just emotional and not in your most resourceful state that's causing you to want to quit because that'd be the easier thing to do. Maybe you just need to toughen up and keep working through that situation. If you are going to quit, and you're in the wrong place, you need to answer the following questions. What exactly did you do wrong? How did this mistake happen and why is it a mistake? If you cannot answer these questions, then maybe it's your current mental state talking and not the actual truth of the matter talking. If you can answer them, you also need to be able to answer, what did you not see or do earlier? What information did you ignore? What could you have done differently given the same information that you had at the time, not given new information that you have now? Point number 3, understand that mistakes ain't free, no matter how you came about making them. If you have indeed made a mistake and you messed up, again, whether it was purposeful or not, you have to pay off that mistake. This is the way that life works, and this is what adults do. Whether that means you got to pay in time, you got to pay in money, or you have to pay in effort. It sucks to have to pay off a mistake, but the alternative is going deeper, and you will have to pay even more with the mistake later on. You can claim ignorance and say, hey, I was just dumb, I didn't know what I didn't know, to pay off the mistake at a small amount, or you could be stupid knowing that you made a mistake and then continue to make it anyway. That only compounds the crime, and the price tag will be much, much higher later on down the line. Which mistake do you want to make? Now, if you want to toughen your mind up to be able to get rid of situations that you know are not the right situations, get out from dealing with people who you know are not the right people, and be mentally tough enough to handle that discomfort that comes with it, then I would suggest you take the Bulletproof Mindset 2.0 course. As we have revamped this entire course, it's a 12-module course. It's my deepest course. If I took all my courses and only could offer you one, it would be this one. It's Bulletproof Mindset 2.0. It is available exclusively in Work On Your Game University, which you can get into right now by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. It's all one word, workonyourgameuniversity.com for Bulletproof Mindset 2.0. Work on your game. Dre all day.